Is this some kind of Masonic symbol? Is it some kind of satanic cross? The answer is coming up right now on Symbols and Secrets. Welcome to Symbols and Secrets, the viewer's guide to Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, streaming now on peacocktv.com. New episodes drop every Thursday. I'm the host of Symbols and Secrets, Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, Scottish Rite Mason. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe. Click the subscribe button right now. Really helps us out. Also, like the video. If you've got a question, you can shoot me an email, podcast@scottishrite.org, or just drop a comment below. Be glad to answer your questions. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to Peacock, you can click the link up above here and subscribe right now. Here on Symbols and Secrets, we go through the Lost Symbol television show and, of course, the novel, and we take a look at some of the symbols that are there and find out if they are symbols that have actual Masonic significance or if they're things kind of made up for the story. One symbol has already gotten a lot of attention, and we definitely need to explain it. It was in both of the trailers that we saw, and it was in episode 1, and it's this symbol here. We see first on this envelope, and then Robert Langdon also sees it in another location. If you have not watched the first episode yet, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but Robert Langdon says that's the Leviathan Cross. It's anachronous. It doesn't belong here. And he's dead on. It is not a Masonic symbol. It's also not called the Leviathan Cross. That's a bit of a misnomer. So we're going to get into that a little bit. Joining me by Zoom is brother Jaime Paul Lamb, 32nd degree. He's the author of this book, Myth, Magic, and Masonry, Occult Perspectives in Freemasonry. And brother Jaime, thank you for joining us. First, give me a little rundown of what this book is.
Well, sure. That was my first book in 2018, and that was basically about 4 kind of vantage points from which to survey Masonic ritual and symbolism, and that is from the perspective of ceremonial magic traditions, from the perspective of astrological and sort of solar and astrological symbolism, from the perspective of mystery traditions, and I used as my exemplar Mithraism, because there's a lot of correlatives there and just a lot of, neat things to bring up in terms of juxtaposition. And then lastly, from the perspective of comparative mythology. So those 4 kind of components round out my thesis in that book.
So for the neophyte, this is not going to be a great jumping off point in terms of beginning a look at Masonic symbolism. This is more of a deep dive for someone who's been experienced in that. But the reason I wanted to talk to you was Dan Brown, of course, best-selling author, The Vinci Code, Inferno, and famously The Lost Symbol, which has now made it to television. It's one of the last of his books to make it to the screen. And obviously, when you tell a story that goes from the page to the screen, the producers take certain liberties. Dan went to painstaking lengths in his book to make the masonry aspect of it as accurate as possible. And I think they're doing the same thing with the television show, as best we can tell at this point. But one symbol has caught a lot of people's attention, a cross with 2 bars, an arrow pointing up, and then an infinity symbol at the bottom, which several people have jumped on and said, oh, it's a satanic symbol. It's the Leviathan Cross. But a little bit of research shows that that's not quite accurate. So as somebody who has studied these types of things, can you weigh in on that, about that so-called Leviathan Cross?
Well, sure. I think it's important to first, before we even contextualize the symbol, is to kind of take it at face value, which is, a more intuitive approach. Just looking at it, we see, a couple component parts there. We see the sort of Cross of Lorraine. So this Cross of Lorraine, or this Cross of Anjou, and it's surmounting a lemniscate, or an infinity circle that is traced by the path of the sun over over an annual circuit, which forms probably from whence we get the idea of a lemniscate, meaning infinity.
Right.
Right. So when we put these together, the first appearance of this symbol that I was able to find, and it's a nameless symbol, we could call it sulfur, we could call it brimstone, but I think, first appearance of the Cross of Lorraine atop the lemniscate, we kind of see in alchemical codices. So, and alchemical sort of glyphs. And this one popularly, any place that I've seen it, represents brimstone.
So this symbol, which in alchemy is used to denote brimstone and or sulfur, which may or may not be interchangeable, kind of depending on the context, was actually borrowed by a guy named Anton LaVey. He dubbed it the Leviathan Cross, and Anton LaVey was the man who in the mid to late 20th century created the Church of Satanism. So how do we go from this being that symbol in alchemy to being used in the Church of Satan?
And probably from brimstone because of its allusions to sulfur and volcanic activity and hell. So I think that if I had to guess, LaVey's rationale was probably reappropriating and recontextualizing this sulfuric underworld kind of hellish symbol, brimstone, and just recontextualizing that and where he got the Leviathan. I mean, of course, we know Leviathan, the sea serpent.
Sure, from the Bible.
Yeah, but I'm not sure why he would attach that or what his rationale was. But we could say this is probably 1969.
Yeah, and it was a sort of a shortest. So this symbol in and of itself is hundreds and hundreds of years old. LaVey's, however his name is pronounced accurately, his association with it is a handful of years. And my guess would be that he used it for the same reason that perhaps the producers of the show are using it, in that visually it's a fairly striking symbol. To say this is a satanic cross would be, I would level that as being an inaccurate statement. How do you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I would say certainly it's a very late recontextualization of a pretty old symbol. I mean, much like we could even talk about the swastika in this context, right? So the swastika, through 20 years, maybe plus or minus, of misuse and misappropriation, the swastika is a pre-literate precessional sort of pole star symbol that we've found engraved on, I think, every continent. There is stone engravings of the swastika. It has been used since time immemorial to reflect particularly the movement, I think, of the Big Dipper around the pole star, or Ursa Major around the pole star. So just because there was a few years of misuse, I mean, it's now in disrepair. So I think this is another one, a microcosmic version of that same sort of effect, where we're seeing Anton LaVey with his Church of Satan sort of appropriating this symbol, and it's striking and it's brimstone. And I think I see his rationale why he would want to do that via the brimstone kind of thing. But now it seems, yes, popularly, it didn't have a name before. So LaVey names it Leviathan's Cross, and then all of a sudden you see it showing up on satanic things.
Brother Jaime Paul Lamb, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us and spending a few minutes kind of dissecting this symbol, which is not a Masonic symbol, and it is not a satanic symbol. It is an alchemical symbol for brimstone, and it's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. But the producers of the lost symbol are having a little fun with it in the story, and we're sure going to follow along. In the meantime, if you want to check out some of Brother Jaime's books, his web address is JaimePaulLamb.com. He's got a couple of really great books out about Freemasonry, about symbolism, and you should check those out. They're also available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And if you want to watch The Lost Symbol and find out what they're going to do next with this so-called Leviathan Cross, you can do that at peacocktv.com. If you've got questions about about Freemasonry, or any questions about the things we've talked about here on Symbols and Secrets, you can drop a comment below or email me, podcast@scottishrite.org. We'll see you next time on Symbols and Secrets.